What's up, guys? Will and Chris back with another weekly Beluga podcast where we spend our lives on crypto Twitter and in the trenches so that you don't have to, bringing you all the biggest and craziest things that happened over the last week. As always, we'll start with a little discussion on the majors, which thankfully at time of recording, things are kind of looking good actually.
Looking
Um,
good again. God bless.
Pull up the Bitcoin chart. Once again, Chris's lines look pretty damn good, honestly.
I'm telling
I don't understand.
you. Looking good though, man. BTC, just a nice upwards trend. You know, looks solid.
Yeah, I mean,
ETH had a
I
nice
think
pump too. I mean, look at this shit, dude.
we have a long way to go before ETH catches up for the absolute trauma we've been through this cycle.
Yeah,
But
agreed with that.
things are looking good. I think
Uh,
one kind of interesting data point that I saw earlier today, right before this kind of big surge happened, was strength in foreign currencies versus the dollar, which I know I'm not a macro guy. I understand the concept behind it, but I've seen a lot of traders kind of saying that the second piece of this bull run isn't going to start until we see some real weakening of the DXY. So I think
mm,
that's encouraging that we're seeing this pump alongside that. It's kind of,
interesting.
I guess, a confluence of what people have been looking for in
Pretty
conversations I've
fine.
had, at least.
And dollar's been going down, so
Yep, tends to be a
interesting.
good sign for us. So
Right.
that's
Dollar
exciting.
weakening, go into risk on, basically. Yeah. Um, yeah, it makes sense. I mean, look, I think it's the same. I think it's still boring overall. Truthfully,
Mhm.
right? This is still kind of the same price action we talked about. You're thawing out from the summer. People are coming back. It's kind of you could squint one way and say it's bearish, squint one way and look it's bullish. But I think generally speaking, it is funny. And we talk about this every week, but how the timeline just shifts. Right from like hyper bearish, to hyper positive. Right now, I feel like people are definitely euphoric and people are hyped, and we saw one green candle, like holy shit, we're back, and that's kind of where we are right
Yep,
now.
on people.
But like, I agree. I think it looks good, dude. Like, I think this is. I'm still bidding for what it's worth. Not a ton, but a little bit here and there. But this just looks positive. And especially I would say a couple things, right? Sort of like the macro story here is. As Kamala continues to put her own foot in her mouth, right, and Trump looks better and better, that's obviously good for this. And she talks about Gensler and a couple of these things, and so it just looks worse and worse for her. And then Trump comes back into play. That's positive. We know rate cuts are right around the corner, right, and the elections here. So again, the same three sort of catalysts from before are happening. And like you said, maybe the DXY is another one to pay attention to. If you look at these things, it's only positive news coming up. We're not even at all time highs yet. Like we're just not even close yet. We haven't hit 70 yet, right? So we have some ways to go, but like things are just looking nice. And I think now is just a great time to sort of like, you know, it's a little bit late to load up, I think, but it's not. It's never too late. Like if you still want to get in, you can. It's you should have done a little bit ago, but you know, looking at this, just seems like a nice period of consolidation before we teleport up again. What's interesting is that
Yep.
Sol has been a little bit weaker than the rest of them. I think BTC and ETH have done pretty well, and then Sol hasn't done. It's like it's been a little bit weak. It's just not seen quite the same level of strength, as the other ones. And recently with Pump.Fun, with a lot of the kind of like Sol FUD too, it's also been a whole thing coming around it. So again, not that it's been bad, still good, but like you're just looking at the numbers. Usually you see sort of like you know, I would generally say if BTC and ETH are up 2-ish%, I see Sol like 5, 6, 7, if anything, but
Yep.
it doesn't seem like it is the case today. So we'll see what
Yeah, I mean, I
drives.
think Sol price has been trading reflexively with the level of degeneracy in the market, and I think all of that degeneracy has been focused on Solana. Basically, it's been all Solana meme coins. This week, for the first time, I think since like the we had a bit of that Sui meme coin rotation way back in
I
November,
forgot about that.
but I mean, I think we'll get more
Making the
into
switch
Tron
on, yeah.
later, but this is the first time we've had a real meme coin rotation on a layer one. I mean, ETH coins have been done all right, but this is the first time we've had a real like alt layer one meme coin rotation since November.
That's true.
So I
This may
think
be
that
just the Tron
speaks to
effect.
yeah, I
Look
yeah,
into that
honestly, I
exactly,
think
yeah.
so.
I
Attention is
think you're right.
elsewhere.
I think you're totally right, and we should talk about that in a second. But just Tron is another L1 blockchain run by the legendary Justin Sun. He's been tweeting a bunch about it. We'll get into it in a second. But he's been tweeting a lot about shitcoins and tweeting a lot about his own pumped up. I think it's called Sun Fund, right? I can't
Yep.
remember, but something like that. And it's it seems to have captured a lot of attention, and people are actually pivoting to Tron, and it's coming off the back of a couple of the positive things that with Tron, the Visa stuff, and blah blah. So anyway, we'll get to that in a second. But I think you're right. Like maybe the softness in the Sol price again is sort of is there degeneracy happening right now? And it seems to have shifted away for the first time all cycle away from Sol into Tron. Is that going to last? I'm pretty skeptical to be honest, but at least for the moment, Justin Sun's got
Yep.
his name in the headline again. But it's been good for I think BTC and ETH, and I think going to what you said last week, the boomer coins. And old
Yes,
DeFi
sir.
coins and like flight to value, flight to quality. I think the one everyone has been talking about is Aave. And Aave, as a simple reminder, is a classic lend borrow protocol, right? You lock up XYZ, you can take out loans against it and use it in crypto. It's the original one. It's by far the biggest one as well. And Will, you know this better than I do. Will, you were shilling this last week, and it looks like it's caught a nice bid.
Yeah,
Looking
I
good.
uh I think we mentioned on the podcast what the proposal went live the 27th, so it was probably a couple days after that we recorded that. But yeah, basically the big reason for this move was just to quickly recap was a proposal that went live on the Aave governance page that would basically if approved and the conditions within it were met would cause some of the revenue that the protocol is making to go back into the token. So, whereas until now, and actually it's still the case that it's just for governance. You can also stake it, but there's I think there's very low yield. But if you add that kind of direct value accrual, that can have a really, really strong impact on price, especially when you're talking about a business like Aave, which is by far the largest lend borrow book in the entire crypto space. So revenue potential there is very, very high. If anybody is tuning in who was here last cycle, you'll remember how crazy some of this DeFi stuff got. Their revenue can go through the roof, and I think they have a stable coin called GHO, which has been catching a good amount of steam. I think it's got a long way to go before they have any real dominance. But I mean, we've seen between Circle and Tether what real thriving stablecoin businesses can yield for the company behind them. So I think it's a collection of things. I guess kind of the last piece of the puzzle that I identified was that people are getting tired of meme coins. And again, back to the degeneracy thing, like the level of degeneracy just reached an absolute frothing peak. We'll talk about this pump fund guy later, but it was clear that we had reached this crazy peak and people were going to start looking for shit that actually had value, stuff that you could actually say, okay, like I can understand why I'm buying it for this price and why it might trade higher in the future. I'm hoping this is kind of the start of a broader rotation to this sector. I was looking at a bunch of boomer altcoins basically that were doing pretty damn well today. So that's encouraging. But yeah, Aave is doing very well. We're up about 50% from the Beluga trading wallet in the last 2 weeks on that
From the
coin.
recording of last week's pod, if you'd bought, you'd be up 40%, I think, 35 ish, right? And, I think you did call it more than 1 week ago, but 2 weeks ago, you'd be up 60% now. So
Yep.
good call, obviously. And I think also, you look at the other tickers here, Compound is a competitor. So similar thing. But the chart doesn't look as good, but still, it's a nice bid from the bottom here, right? And also
Yeah.
looking at Uni, again, another kind of classic boomer DeFi coin, right? Uniswap, same thing. Looking good, up 10% of the day. And just looking across the other tokens for the day, right? You're looking at lower gains, right? 2%. I guess Blur caught a bid, but 2, 3, 4, 5%. So clearly the outperformer of the day is Aave and these kind of more classic boomer DeFi coins, which is interesting to see.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
across the
actually
board.
interesting. The two big outperformers of the day so far, Phantom and Aave, which are both the tokens that I've been biggest on
Oh
over the
shit,
last
I
couple of
missed
weeks.
Phantom.
So that's a good
Yeah,
day.
15% on the day. Not bad.
Not bad. We've got some ways to go, but not bad. It's a good start.
Not bad at all. Could be worse. So yeah. I mean, I think it's promising. Look, I'm a fan of degeneracy as much as the next guy, and look, I love the trade shitcoins as well, but it is a bit. It's a little dark without it. Honestly, it's a bit sort of like, man, what are we doing here? Like we're just gambling. Whereas this is gambling with a purpose. Almost.
Yep.
I feel like at least there's something behind it. There's some sort of like technology is being used here versus just like launching shitters and just trying to rug the next guy in front of you. I think it's been a long time coming. I think honestly, it's lasted longer than I thought. The meme coin
Yep.
frenzy, because
Yep.
the meme coin
Absolutely
world,
same.
every cycle, it's very simple. Basically, everyone loses. It's like that's just what happens. You don't win the meme coin game, unless you're one of the insiders dumping, right? Or you like play it really well, but the numbers are just really, really stacked against you, and so it lasted a long time. But I do think it feels like it's sort of on its last legs, which doesn't mean it'll die, you know, but just means I think you diversify your attention away from 100% shitters to now you get, maybe, 50% shitters, maybe you get like, 50% real stuff, hopefully, but, we'll see where it goes. But definitely a good call on that front, at least. And we'll see how this keeps
Yeah.
trending. But right now, if we
Yeah.
go this
I
way,
don't think, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
no, that's it.
Yeah, I was just I totally agree with you. I don't mean to call like the death of meme coins. I think I've seen a lot of tweets like that. Like people are always just extreme
Yeah,
on
no way.
Twitter. They're not going away. Like the reality is like maybe the gambling quiets down a little bit, but like casinos are the most value extractive business basically in the world, and those things are, even though everybody's losing, like they keep growing year on year. I don't think
Yeah, it's
every
not
just
changing.
because everybody's losing, it doesn't mean people are going to stop gambling on meme coins.
100%.
Yeah,
100%. It's just diversifying away from 100% meme coins, which I think is great.
yeah,
And I think,
yep,
look,
yep.
there's a lot of real value here. There's a lot of real stuff being built. There's a lot of exciting products being built, right? I think it's good to like shine some light on them and have those catch a bid and get some love out of it. It is always a bit sort of depressing to be like, wow, this protocol that's like spitting off cash, right? Like being used all the time is trading at 3 billion, and whiff, which is just dog with a hat, is at 4 or 5. You're just like, what the fuck. So
Yep.
I totally get it, but we'll see how it pans out. But it's positive for both the ETH maxi crowd, right, which now can kind of begin to look at this and say we're coming back to we're coming back home, and then also the DeFi crowd, which is really like last cycle type stuff. So we'll see where it goes. But I'm positive. I think it's a good sign, honestly. Um, Especially
Yep.
more and more fee switch stuff. I think is positive too. You know,
Yes. Yes,
so
absolutely. I mean,
so yeah,
I am actually like not to be that guy, but I am kind of worried about the security classification with a lot of these tokens.
yep,
I mean, that was such a big thing last cycle, like SEC suing somebody new maybe multiple times a week sometimes.
yep,
So, that piece of the fee switch I think is worrying, but I do think that these protocols, they have the benefit of not being the first ones to be doing this, and they've
right,
seen how it's played out elsewhere. So hopefully we can, avoid a lot of that.
totally,
Especially if we get a new administration in office, I think that would help things.
100%. Cool. Maybe switching gears a little bit. Other notable things this week. Actually, just today, we had the release of a new protocol, or at least a new funding announcement for a big protocol, Story Protocol. So, you guys know what Story is? They just announced 140 in total, right? They actually raised, I think it was 60 earlier this year, or now 60, which is
Yep.
really actually accumulation of two different rounds, 30 and 30, over a longer period of time. But they announced 60, and today they announced 80 from A16Z Crypto, which also led their last rounds to $140 million in total raised for this blockchain. And to maybe give you guys a sense of what Story is what they call an IP blockchain, right? Which means very little, but what that actually means is they built an L1 on Cosmos, and what they're trying to do is take IP in the world. So think Pokemon IP, or maybe I don't know, even like sports rights. Those types of things are considered IP, and for some reason, putting that on chain is worth a couple $1 billion. And so, putting that on chain and then allowing you to, I think the idea makes sense for what it's worth. So, not to go too hard, but like the idea is you put it on chain and then you can reuse it in different ways and like sort of allow this to float freely, meaning others can use it freely, and then if they do, they pay you for it, and it's all enforceable at the smart contract level, and things flow and all that. That's kind of the overall idea. I think the thing that's been somewhat stunning and surprising and different about Story is one, just the sheer amount of money they've raised. It's just a lot of money in a very short period of time. Is the first piece. Now, this is not. I think this cycle we've had a few, right? Berachain is another one, right? Which is they raised $100 million earlier this year. Monad was a very well-known one, which is due 225, right? As well, and so they've all raised a lot of money and like sort of deep in the ecosystem. So I think the thing that's notable about Story is they're very Korean, which again, it's not to say anything about Korea, just like it just happens to be a very Korean team. And for the IP story, they're leaning heavy into the Korea background because a lot of K-pop and things come out of there, which makes total sense. I think the thing that is notable is just like again the amount of attention they have, and more importantly, the ecosystem. They just say things like, there's 200 teams here, right? Building on, and you open up this market map and you say, okay, well, this is, my math has never been my strong suit, but I would say this looks a little bit less than 200. And a lot of these just like if you have layer 0 on Block Scout here, I mean that doesn't say a whole lot either, right? Or like Gold Sky and Indexer or Third Web, these are not even DApps. These other things looking like Tomo, right? Lens, these are social things on any other chain, right? So you just sort of look at like, okay, what the hell's going on here? Alora again is AI infra, every rituals AI stuff. Like these things are just on every other chain. So it's kind of unclear what they're talking about here and like why we need all this money for this and what the point is. So yeah, I think that's the question on Story. I think if you read on Twitter today, an incredible amount of skepticism, but it's just Twitter. I mean, that's just how it is. Everyone that raised a lot of money gets shit on Twitter, so I don't read into that too
Yeah.
much. But I think I've always been surprised about Story, which is I've looked into this market a lot, and it's just like not that big. I think that's the reality of it, and like. The idea is that you put the IP on chain, you can reuse it different ways. I think it's a great idea, and I can totally see a world in which is true. To me, the question that about Story is, you know, is now the time, and it's IP the mechanism to do this, right? If you remember a couple of years ago, we had this whole thing around music rights, which is a similar story, right? Let's take music rights, let's put it on chain, and this way everyone can participate in their favorite artists or whatever. You can crowdfund new people, you can pass royalties, you can use that as ticketing, you can allow your targeting fans better, blah blah blah. Turns out none of it worked, right? And the reason is very simple. If you're an artist, especially a popular one, in which people would want to buy a share of your music, it turns out your music is probably locked up behind a label, right? And so you're not going to be able to put any of that shit on chain because why the fuck would they want to put it on chain? They want to keep it to themselves, and so you're relegated to only sampling the back catalog, which is like when you make an album, you have like 200 songs, only 20 make it out, so you've got 180 that are sitting there in the back pocket, and you can put that on chain. The problem is 180 of the songs, the reason they're in the back, the reason the back catalog is because they fucking suck, and nobody wants them, right? And so like that's why. So sure, we can like listen to it, I would love to hear like the 50th iteration of some Taylor Swift song that nobody cares about, but like nobody really cares about that, right? And so that's bet number one. Bet number two is that you can then sign a bunch of new people, right, that are undiscovered and unknown, and then through the power of the crowd and the wisdom of the crowd, we can sort of crowdfund these people to a new generation. Like it's really Justin Bieber on YouTube. That's kind of what we're looking for with the rest of these things, right? And that didn't work out either, right? Because it turns out Justin Bieber, the minute he makes a hit on YouTube, Universal calls him, right, or Usher in this case, calls him and offers him $100 million, right? And that's going to be where that goes. And so I kind of think like, when I look at this, I think it has a lot of similarities to the IP world. I'm not knocking them at all. I think they're actually, relatively speaking, incredibly well positioned. I think Korea is a great place to do this, partnering with all those institutions. And I think the generative AI story they have behind it also makes a lot of sense. I think, it will be interesting to see the ecosystem they build out of it, the kind of products, the kind of protocols that happen here. And like, can it support this, right? Because if you think about Monad as a simple example, raised at about the same price, right? Give or take a little bit less, but you can see where a parallelized EVM and like high throughput and all those things could lead to high price, a lot of transactions, a lot of users, a lot of revenue for that business. Even Vera, right, with quick liquid, a lot of things. With IP, I just see it a little bit less. I have a harder time seeing how this comes together, both from a market perspective, but also just like usage transactional things. But again, we'll see what goes on. But again, like you can't knock someone who raised 140 million bucks from A16Z. At the end of the day, they're showcasing their own ability to sell the narrative and to tell their own story behind it. So again, a shout out to them. We'll see how it goes. Another Cosmos L1. We'll see how that goes. I think I'm always very a little a little skeptical of how those roll out. So far, we haven't seen a lot of great things come out of them. Even the quote unquote EVM compatible Cosmos chains, seem to be kind of where they are. And I personally don't really enjoy using Cosmos as another as just a consumer. And so we'll see where it goes. But if you're going to raise this kind of money, it's inevitable. You have to pivot to the L1. And there's a tweet from the founder that says they had tried the L2 game, they tried protocol stuff, and they realized that the L1 was the only way to solve the problem, which really means, wow, we've raised 40 million bucks, we've raised 60 million bucks. The price is high. You just do some very simple math. The valuation that we need to live into dictates one thing: we got to go L1 or bridge, and so you got to go the L1 route. So we'll see where it lands. But I don't know. Will, any comments or thoughts on story or just like these types of new blockchains in general?
I don't know. I saw the tweet today and I was just like dumbfounded by the raise amount. That's really my takeaway. I'm not an IP expert by any means, but I just don't really understand why you would need to put this stuff on chain. I get, you know, contract provenance, immutability, licensing agreements on chain. That all makes sense to me, but um, a lot of that is stuff that's already possible on existing blockchains, and I don't understand why you need to raise $140 million to build a new blockchain on a protocol that people don't like using to adapt to something that already exists.
Yep.
That's kind of my summary.
I agree. So
Yeah,
anyway, it does show you
I
the
hope it
amount of
works out for the investors, but we'll see.
exactly. Look, no FUD and no negative wishes on the team, but just a little baffling to me. Although I am generally bullish like verticalized block space or like verticalized products in general for a specific use case. The question is the use
Yep.
case good? Maybe an example of one being good would be Hyperliquid. I don't know if you saw it. Where the hell is this thing? Hyperliquid. Here we go. Right, Hyperliquid built an L1 to focus on perps, right, and trading. And Avo did too, I guess. But like taking a look, like this is orders coming through and working, right? And so you really get to, I mean, anyone who's traded perps sort of knows the DEX experience just as ass compared to SEX experience. Like at the end of the day, if you don't want to put your money onto a centralized exchange because you're a criminal or some kind of someone who wants to evade the taxes or whatever, right? You work
Or
on the
you're just
DEX
a
and you
U.S. resident and you're
or you're
not
just
allowed to use any of these things.
fair enough, or you're U.S. exactly, or you're a U.S. resident, you just can't use them. Like everyone knows that like the experience is not very good. Like it sucks and it's slow. You don't have the markets, and it just doesn't. It's not the snappy experience. It's a Dex, and so seeing this is actually pretty cool. Where it's like, man, like it actually seems to be working pretty well, and you're able to really get this thing going. So could be cool. And this is to me is a good example of like verticalized product or like a focused product where you customize the chain to fit a use case that has demand, has volume that you clearly see works, right? Because like I can see, look at this, I'm like, damn, that looks awesome. I mean, that's insane. I haven't seen something like that ever, right? So that's a great use case. And maybe like contrasting that, also maybe talking about boomer coins, like going into man, you know, on the heels of that, you have another boomer coin, DYDX, which is the original DEX on Ethereum. And I don't know, maybe we'll talk about it a bit, but like it seems like if they were one of the originals, backed by A16Z again, also. And it was a former Coinbase alum that then come out. Antonio spun out to build DYDX, one of the first dexes out there, a perps dexes, and had just been a lot of shifting and pivoting. They were Stark, I think it was a Stark chain, I can't remember, or Mutable, I can't remember. There were some, they were their own app, then the chain, then they became their own Cosmos chain as well, maybe into the Nocturne Cosmos, and it seems like its sentiment has gone the other way. So I don't know, Will, have you been following the story? Do you know what's going on here?
Yeah, I mean, I remember even a year ago, the only people using DYDX were like big funds and institutions. I honestly don't really know why that's the case. I don't know why they chose them. It may have been some kind of, maybe they were investors or otherwise. But I do know that like normal traders just were not using the platform. I think there were just better alternatives. And I know one of the big complaints with it was that they were super, super slow to add new listings. So
Right.
you got basically, well, I also remember that they got screwed by, was it the Wi-Fi exploit? I think they lost a bunch of
Was it?
money.
I actually don't know.
So they ended up having to like lower the max leverage you could take. So you have a combination of like, low max leverage, no new pairs that people want to trade. And I think the user experience was just worse than you could find in other places. So people just stopped using it. I think their volume numbers are still pretty good. My understanding is it's mostly used by, again, funds and institutions who are like arbing prices. But yeah, I mean, I think it's getting no positive attention from the everyday trader because they're not using it. So I think that's a big reason that sentiment's shifted.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I don't think it
And
has
look,
anything to do with like the fee switch or revenue or whatever that people are saying.
yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. I think you're probably right about that. And also, like the token, it's been out for a while. It's an older token. They're probably running out of tokens. Yeah, they used to, give you tokens based on usage, right? And
Yep.
so, you got comps just for trading, and you could just be doing some delta neutral arb on there, right? And like making some money, just earning DYDX tokens. It's probably what's happening. And then now, if that's drying up, it could be a thing. So I don't know what the emission schedule looks like for DYDX and what's going on there, but I would imagine at least a couple years in the game, user experience worsening, right? Leverage going down, slow to add markets, like you said. Plus just a lot of flexibility. People don't love to see it, right? And then you add in, like you said, you add in the token drying up, right? I think all of a sudden, you can go the other way, and also like enter hyperliquid, like good product, right? Like pretty interesting stuff coming on, and like it makes total sense. So people have been like memeing the hell out of it. Here's Antonio, the founder of, I think it's founder of DYDX, yeah, and he even said, DYDX is complacent, primarily led by me, right? Um, and Saka talking about DIDX and Hyperliquid here. So anyway, we'll see where it goes. But I mean, that's the beautiful thing about crypto. Like you can just build a new thing better anytime, and all of a sudden, like you're hot shit yesterday, tomorrow you're nothing.
Yep.
So anyway, pretty pretty nutty stuff and interesting to talk about. Maybe shifting gears then, like talking about trading and perps and these types of things, going back to that original conversation on Solana. Like one thing that's been all over recently this week is definitely Tron and Justin Sun.
Mm.
And the rise of that. I can't say I am like super deep in the Tron world. Actually, the opposite. I'm not deep at all. I don't know shit about the Tron world, but I have seen. I
I
do
was
follow
gonna
Justin
say
Sun, of
I
course.
can say I am not deep.
Yeah, I can't say I know what's going on here, but I would say recently here, God, where was it? Geez, I didn't realize Justin's tweeting so much. But here, Sun Pump is the new product that they launched, and I feel like that's kind of what catalyzed a lot of this. Um, where Justin Sun it's basically their version of Pump.Fun, I imagine. Yeah, yeah,
Yep.
I think that's
Yep.
exactly it.
It's the same thing. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. Okay, so the same thing as Pump.Fun, but on Tron. And it's a classic crypto thing, which is like, I think he shared a few charts of tokens going up. And the next thing I knew, all of a sudden my chat's like, well, bridge into fucking Tron, like, and going down that road. And so kind of, yeah, maybe this might be it, I don't know. So it's been a lot of that, but what do you think? What have you been watching? Okay, here it is. It's the NGMI comment here. Sun
Yep.
Pump on Tron, earn 143K yesterday, and the revenues up Tron. People are just like, fuck, maybe I got to go over there. And all of a sudden I felt this, everyone's talking about Bridge and Tron. So yeah, I don't know. Do you know what's going on
Yeah.
here?
I
Have you
mean,
been
I
following?
think, yeah, like, well, a little bit. I think one thing that's also worth noting is that Tron is, I think, behind Ethereum, the second biggest chain for the Tether stablecoin. So
Yep.
there is just a ton of liquidity on that chain. And um, I'm kind of surprised it happened with like meme coins first and that we didn't get other types of coins running on the chain. But like, I'm not surprised to see things running. That's not to say that, I'm one of the people that bridged over and has been trading this stuff, but I think the fact that there's so much liquidity is a huge reason why this is doing well. And His
Good point.
Excellency Justin Sun is maybe the best pumper of our time,
I agree
and
with that.
loves having attention on him, loves being, the center of everything. So, he's managing this meme coin attention really well.
Yep. Totally. Agreed. Agreed. So he's just ripping it, Good for Justin, I think at the end of the day, it's going well for them. I'm just like reading some of these tweets, just hilarious. And everything is like Sun focused, obviously, because it's Justin's son. So, anyway, he's just an absolute legend. But yeah, it is interesting to see the volume and actually people coming over. Like this is just hilarious, too. But anyway, so we'll see where it goes. Yeah, I don't think it lasts. I doubt the Tron experience is any good. I think people come back to Seoul, but I think generally, like if the liquidity is drying up, people just seeking new venues to try and pump shitters. Usually not a good sign. Anyway, so I mean, we can
Yep.
maybe. I mean, like maybe on the other side of this exact same coin is maybe taking a look at like the actual shit going on in Pump.Fun. Um, let's see, where is this thing? So yeah, I don't know. Will, do you want to lead us into this shit?
So ridiculous. Yeah. Pumped Up Fun introduced a feature like somewhat recently where where if you are the developer, if you had launched one of the coins on the platform, you can set up almost like a Twitch stream on the platform. And people have been doing some absolutely insane shenanigans. I remember that guy lit himself on fire a couple weeks ago, but it's coming to a head. So we had this guy who goes by Crackhead Dev, who I think he said he rented a $10 an hour hooker and was just literally smoking crack and eating the hooker's ass on stream. That was the entire point of the stream.
It's right
So
here.
like, I mean, look, if this is not like top signal shit, I don't know what is.
Shaving his head, drinking his
I
own
think there
piss.
are like
He's eating
10,000
ass
people
again.
watching the stream at one point. And like that's all real people. That's not bots. Like you have to actually click into the stream.
Oh, bro's
Insane.
doing heroin, tweaking off his ass, like it's just insane. Doing a stripper review, just like, just hilarious stuff, honestly. But it really did signal, like, it was just a dark thing to watch this guy do this, just like she's
It was
shaving his
dark.
head, he's smoking crack, he's like banging this hooker. Um, and we're just trying to get this token up, So it really shows what's going on here. I think, like I said, he got to 1 million in market cap, which is
Yeah,
just
about that.
absolutely nothing. And so, like, that's a lot of effort to get to $1 million in market cap, because it's not you get to keep $1 million. You probably take 50K if you run the thing. So just absolutely hilarious stuff. But like, this is what's
Insane.
going on in shitcoin land, right? So like, this is probably, I think, the funniest thing that happened. And just one minute I woke up, the entire time I just filled these types of pictures, and everyone just like, what's going on, dude? And so anyway, just absolutely hilarious stuff. And to showcase, I guess, like where we are at the shitcoin markets.
Romance is not dead.
Exactly.
So ridiculous.
But cool.
I guess changing gears a little bit. Should we talk about Kanto quickly?
Yeah,
This
yeah,
is
yeah,
one. So
definitely.
so quickly back to Aave. The reason I even saw that the fee switch proposal, which is why I started buying, was a video from Taiki Maeda. I may be mispronouncing that, but something like that. And he was talking about the video. Now, one of the other things that Taiki is known for is having shilled Kanto for, I mean, like a year and a half, 2 years now, and it has literally been down only. Like it's become like one of the biggest memes. This was just, I mean, I don't even remember if they had a reason for if there was like a narrative around it. I think it was just like a
It was
fast L1.
Cantofornia. That's the only thing I remember. It was Cantofornia. It was Variant bought a big bag of just these liquid tokens.
They were gonna do that T-bills thing at one point, I think,
Yes,
like an RWA thing.
they started doing exactly. I didn't understand at the time, and yeah, it was classic like shill. Everyone started shilling Canto in Cantofornia, and this is what the chart looks like. Just like absolutely awful. No, this is not. This is the bad chart. But
Jesus.
still,
Yeah.
um, I don't even know what's a good chart for this. Um, anyway, it's just awful. Like, it's just down only. I think I can't do it here. There we go. Yeah, just absolutely
Horrific.
horrific.
Jesus.
And like, it went down for a while, I think, right? I think Kanto
Yeah,
went
so it was
down for
down.
like,
Well, it was down. I think there's so many layer ones at this point that like nobody fucking uses. Kanto is one of them, and I think it was down for like 8 hours before I saw anybody tweeting about it. That's how few people are using this chain. Nobody noticed for 8 hours.
Oh God, just really hilarious. Producing no blocks, products completely down, and nobody cares.
And then their Twitter guy just started like making fun of it. He was like, "I wish we had a working blockchain."
Yeah, and he's just gone
So
deranged.
good.
It's been actually hilarious to watch. But just like I think they raised a bunch of money. Um,
Yeah, I
but
mean, I remember I don't know if he's a co-founder, or just primary founder, but Scott was dumping
yep,
his bag for. He probably still is.
yep,
Um, yeah,
yep.
no, that was a disgusting one. I have a few friends who got wrecked on Kanto.
Actually, I actually did okay on Kanto, but
Mm.
I was definitely in and out. But there was a moment. I mean, Kanto definitely had a moment. Um, where was it? Like right around here. I mean, this was the chart that like got everyone
Yeah,
hyped. This price action is no joke. Yeah, nearly a 10x
it went the other way.
in the course of a month. And then it went to zero. So, oh God. But anyway, good times in
Crypto,
crypto. Exactly. So
good times.
that's what it is. But yeah, I mean that's really it. I think this week. Anything else, Will, that we missed?
I think that was basically it for me. I mean, honestly, like aside from this pump today, it's been pretty boring price action. I think Bitcoin's been in the same 6% range for like 3 weeks now.
Yep.
Um,
Agreed.
we'll see if we can hold over 60K this time. It feels
Yep.
bullish, honestly. Like things, it feels like things are clicking. The only, I guess,
Agreed.
the one thing I'd add, like on the bearish side, is I saw like ETF flows are just not great right now. I saw
I
yesterday
agree.
ETH had I think minus 18 mil in outflows. BTC gains 80 mil or something in inflows. Like across the board, it just hasn't been that strong, especially on the ETH side. So I guess that's something to watch. I know the data says that um, people who've been buying the ETFs are not like necessarily selling them. They tend to be holding, and a lot of the negative price pressure is from like the crypto native side. But
Right.
buy volume slowing is not typically a good thing.
Totally.
So something to keep
But
an
we'll
eye on.
see. The narratives
Yeah.
in front of us are still the same. They still affect the
Yep.
flows in the same way. So, but I agree.
Yep.
Something to keep an eye on. I don't think it's like full max on hyper bullish yet, but
No.
at least it's trending the right direction and it looks good. And meanwhile, while we sit and wait and we look at a couple boomer coins, there's always fun stuff going on a ship on that to keep our attention. But
Yes,
yeah.
sir.
Anyway, so I think that's it for this week at least. But thanks for stopping by, and we'll catch y'all next week.